This is an excerpt from Peter Ralston's new book, Ending Unnecessary Suffering, coming out in March of 2025. It might be that no suffering is truly necessary, but when it comes to physical damage or disease, this is a different domain than what we have addressed here. Our mental activities may not cause this form of pain, but they certainly can contribute much unnecessary distress. Of course, as mentioned, we can indeed affect our physical condition to some degree with our minds, for better or for worse. We can create stress with worry, or calm the nervous system with meditation. These clearly have physical effects on the body. Aside from this influence, let's touch on our relationship to physical pain. I already suggested that we add a lot of discomfort conceptually. To hammer home this point, some time ago, an experiment was done with a group of Tibetan monks who'd trained their whole adult lives controlling their minds and contemplating reality, and another group of regular people who had not. Within this experiment, people were subjected to painful electric shock while their brains were being monitored. As I understand it, there was a sound made before the shock, then the shock, and time after the shock, before repeating. Most people's brains showed increased pain and anxiety before the shock, spiking during the shock, and lingering painful activity after the shock. With the monks, on the other hand, there was no activity before the shock. Even when they were cued it was coming. There was a spike in the brain during the shock, but afterwards there was no distress. We can see in this example our normal automatic conceptual activity more than triples the suffering for most people. What we conceptually add to what's there can dramatically increase and extend the amount of suffering we endure. Alternatively, simply and only experiencing physical pain could be a simple episode that passes quickly. But our conceptual add-ons of fear, anxiety, resistance, resentment, and so on often add most of the discomfort we experience. You may have heard of me getting my teeth drilled without Novocaine, but that is a matter that requires existentially grasping the nature of pain and not producing it. We might consider that this is a rather advanced level of conceptual control, but it is still about controlling the mind and not adding what is at its core a concept. I know it is difficult to impossible to consider pain as a concept, and to be clear, it is not mere mental activity. What I'm really saying is that pain is a distinction we make. We interpret something as painful by adding this distinction. If we don't do that, the experience is not painful. But this depth of consciousness isn't likely going to be readily available to most people. I'm just saying it actually does work that way. We simply have a hard time seeing it. Certainly, I don't want to give the impression that I go around without pain. Not true. If I stub my toe, I'm likely to yell out and hop around in agony for a bit. That comes rather automatically, and I don't spend much time and energy fighting the tendency. After all, it's just an experience. But the point is that I can, and do sometimes, end pain, and so can you. But in this consideration, perhaps another story might be more appropriate. I was having acupuncture a long time ago by a traditional Chinese practitioner who plunged the needles unusually deep. I found that although there was some discomfort to the needle, my resistance and anxiety to the next plunge was adding much unnecessary discomfort. When I simply let go and allowed the needle to enter my body without resistance, the discomfort all but disappeared. It really is quite remarkable, and it really does work. We've seen that worry, for example, adds distress without anything physical occurring. This is all in our minds. With physical pain, strictly speaking, it is not just in our minds, but we also add a great deal. When we stop adding all the conceptual activity and interpretations that pile on unnecessary pain to even the so-called necessary pain, this experience is far less painful and usually ends sooner. The point is, our resistance to physical pain adds to the pain. Stop resisting, and the pain reduces. We might even find that something we thought was physical pain really isn't, or isn't as bad as we thought once we make this shift. Check it out. It's not that I'm so much smarter than anyone else. It's that I stay with the problem longer. Albert Einstein. Ending Unnecessary Suffering is coming out in March of 2025. To pre-order now, click the link in the description.